Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Due a little late today, Tom.
Yeah, we're a little late today. Not sure what the deal is, and I'm having issues with my logos and all that. I'm not sure what's going on today. So anyhow, there we go. We're just gonna let it roll and see what happens. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Brush. This is Bob Graham, and this is today's Antidote, where we try to provide that one thing to help people move forward, take their next steps, and follow their own unique pathway to success. As we're going through, we'll provide our one thing, and we hope that you will share your thoughts in the comments or your one thing, the one thing that you take out of this conversation that will help someone move forward today, tomorrow, or maybe coming up, that will be a benefit and add value to who they are and what they're trying to do. So this week, we are talking about being right. And today we're going to talk about who gets to decide about being right, which I think is, yesterday I thought we had a good conversation about being right. And I think that this is another opportunity, especially in business. Who gets to decide? Is it your client? Is it your customer? Is it your team? What are some of your thoughts on that, Bob?
I get to decide who's right. The rules are, I make the rules, I get to decide. Let's move on. Next topic. No, I'm being somewhat facetious, but I do believe in some ways being right is about me deciding what the rules are, what the milestones are, what how to score the test, and what the outcome should be. So I think that's one of the things, as you were talking, I realized about this whole idea of being right, that if we're being right, we're only looking at things from our own perspective. And that doesn't make for cooperation. If I only focus on what I cared about in these broadcasts, they wouldn't nearly be as good as when we have a dialogue, when we have a debate, when we, have the moment like, oh, gee, Tom, I never thought of that before. So I think being right is closing ourselves off. It's putting up the wall and saying, this is the way it is. Take it or leave it. And I think so much of what I've discovered in business is it's not take it or leave it. It's more like a little this, a little that. It's like the soup recipe. You throw things in until it tastes good.
Well, I think that's the challenge, right? Is, we go in business and we have a process by the way we do things. And our clients and customers and even our staff come at us with a different perspective or process. And how do we mend the two? They say that there's that saying that the customer is always right. Well, I know that now that has been challenged and fewer people are saying that and saying that the customer needs to be heard. That doesn't mean that they are always right, because they aren't always right. They make mistakes as well. And so how do we balance where that comes in? How do we balance of what we believe is what is right and what our customer thinks is right and what our staff or team think is right?
Hey, Tom, why don't we take a quick pause so that people can plan for 8:30 this morning? Because at 8:30 Eastern time today, we are going to do a Renegades Roundup. That's our networking event where we bring together people from all over the country, all kinds of different interests, and we actually get them talking about things that actually lead to, I said actually twice, now 3 times, that lead them to better understand each other so they can start having thoughtful discussions that often lead to exciting and interesting results. The best feedback we hear almost every time we do this is, man, that hour went by really quick. I didn't even feel like I was networking, yet I want to talk to everyone more. That's what we're trying to do. So if you're looking for an easy opportunity to network, no cost, all you got to do is show up and be ready to answer some questions. They're not hard questions. Oh, and here's the other thing. You don't need to think hard about your elevator pitch. You don't have to get out the note card and shaking your hands as you try to remember the 12 words that define you perfectly. We get beyond all that. Okay, Tom, there we go. Back to our topic.
Okay. So when you think about, well, and in some ways that's the same thing, right? You walk into a networking event and what's right? Who gets to decide? Is this, I think one of the things I like about what we do is that everyone gets to share what they believe is real, and they get to define for themselves kind of what right is. And I think that, again, becomes the challenge. I look back on some of the things that I've done in my professional life when I thought about being right. Like, I've got to figure out how to get this absolutely right. And all it usually does is lead to overwhelm, frustration, and getting stuck. And
often mistakes, right?
Sure.
When you're so busy thinking about what's right, that's when some of the obvious things might get by you.
And, once we put it out there thinking we think this is what's right, the people who receive it aren't always going to feel the same way. So how do we start to balance that? Where does quote unquote right belong?
I think that's the crux of the issue, Tom. And I think so often, when we're younger, we think we have to be right. I mean, that's one of the things. I worked with a lot of college students, and they felt like they had to be right. And I think the thing that college taught me was that there are shades of everything. And that if you think that, frogs should be preserved, that's great. You can believe that. That's fine. But someone else is going to say, frogs aren't that important. And the discussion is what's valuable. And I think that's what I'm finding in business. It's getting to the discussion because, frankly, it doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. All it matters is, can I solve a problem for another person that they are willing to compensate me for solving that problem? Whether it's getting them the pizza because they're hungry on Friday night, whether it's getting them the escape to a movie theater, whether it's fixing their car, flying them to Paris safely. Those things all are things that we need. And if I don't have a solution that fits, it's not going to work. I see Steve's comment that frogs are very important. And he also says, I'm going to pop this up here, have someone else, I think it might be Tim, saying frogs are very important. Steve says, college taught me that right is a matter of perspective, but including lots of perspectives is the key. Yes, well said, Steve. I like that idea. Because the other thing, Tom, is what's right now for us could be very different than what's right in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years. I mean, I'm looking at my life now. This is not where I expected to be when I was in college. This is the farthest thing from what I expected, but it feels right now. And if you had told me at 22, hey, when you're 55, you'll be doing this thing, I'd be like, first of all, what's the internet? Second of all, who's this Tom Brush guy? And all these things. We don't know what's coming down the pike. And to be right is to suggest, I think, ultimately, that we want to wrap ourselves in some sense of stability. If I'm right, that means all the other things can't penetrate into that armor and start messing with me. And I think that's why, as we become more uncertain about what we're doing, I think we want to be more right because that's a way to combat the uncertainty.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was just thinking about that as you were talking about stability. I mean, really, the world that we live in is unstable. And there's some really great...
What? Whoa. Time out. You mean it's unstable? Tom, I don't know if I can live in the world like that. You're messing with me. I mean, I got to rethink everything. How can I possibly put money in my savings account? Why am I doing this work today? If everything's unstable, shouldn't I just go out and party?
Or how do you adjust with if you are willing to be unstable? Knowing that everything else around you is unstable, doesn't that create some sort of stability?
Ooh, nice.
What do you think about that?
I'm going to go back and watch this whole episode again because of that, because I feel like it snuck by me.
Because I think people were talking about, and I was talking with somebody yesterday who was struggling. You know, they were going through the should have, could have, I'm not right for this, all of those limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. Because I think they were feeling like they had to be right. They needed to find that version of what was right. And it's almost like, okay, well, once you've found it, you found it for the moment, because everything else around you, the next moment is going to change. And your environment now is no longer what it is. And so what if, rather than searching for what is right, we became more comfortable with the instability and what we can gain from that instability? And I almost believe if you are willing to accept that things are constantly changing and that there never is a right, doesn't that provide some sense of stability?
Or it provides this sense of everything's unstable, which takes the whole stability question out of the equation. But I think stability equals safety. And
Sure.
safety comes from being right. If I know what I'm doing today, Tom, if I know exactly what to do at that networking event at 8:30 Eastern this morning, and I know if I say these 27 words, everyone's going to flock to my business, that's a whole lot better than going into that event and being like, oh, I just want to let it happen, and maybe it'll work for me, and maybe it won't work for me, but I'm spending a lot of time on this, and I need the results to come in. I can't afford to spend an hour on a Tuesday morning networking and not get some result out of it. But unfortunately, the minute we impose that kind of control, that need to accomplish something, that's when we start closing ourselves off to the possibilities. And I've seen it. You know, I was writing in the book a couple months ago about how I was at a networking event, and a guy said, I need a lawyer. And a guy walked up to him and said, I'm an attorney. He said, no, I'm looking for a lawyer. And they walked away from each other. Lack of language, and both of them wanting to be right. No, I need a lawyer. That's what I'm looking for. Don't tell me about this attorney thing. And what? Tell me more. Oh, what's your problem? But they had a discussion that was about being right. I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney. And as a result, they couldn't come together where clearly one could have helped the other.
Sure. Yeah, I think that if when we decide that we're right, when we decide it's us that decide, that we get to decide whether I'm right or not, that closes us off to a whole lot of things. You know, we were having a conversation about an organization that had a manual, a procedure manual. This is the way we go. Okay. Well, what happens when the manual fails? What happens when somebody doesn't follow the manual? What happens when something happens outside of the manual? If we are just relying on the manual, because the manual is right. Okay. Is it right in the moment? Who is it right for? Is it right for us? Is it right for the customer? Is it right for the organization? I think that if we realize that we don't get to decide what's right, that it's out there, right is out there, maybe, that it's really, really about what's real. What are we living in the moment? You know, when you
really about what's real, that's a keeper.
When you were talking about, at 22, you never thought you'd be doing this. Well, at 22, what was real for you was X. At 50 something, what's real for you is different. And you never could have expected that the internet would exist. You never would have guessed, hey, I'm going to meet this guy, and then 10 years later, we're going to figure out how to do something together to help people.
Not just this guy that changed my life.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
I think that's probably accurate. So.
It has influenced your life, maybe. And doesn't everyone we meet influence our lives?
If we allow them to, which is where, to think back to our networking. If you go into the networking event or any event with that approach, this person could influence me. How could they influence me? That's a different perspective than I'm going to this event to find customers. Because what if the person influences you like, hey, you use this one word? That kind of threw me. Have you ever thought about using this word to describe what you do? And it's like, whoa. Yeah, that could be a powerful influence if we're open to it. So I think that's part of this as well. Being right really closes us down.
Right.
It shuts the door. And Tom, we've got to shut the door because we've got to get ready for that networking event right down the road. Was that smooth?
I saw what you did there. So what's your one thing, Bob?
Recognizing that when we are right, we are closing off possibilities. So the minute we say that we're right, that means we've slammed the door shut to whatever could come from a situation.
I like that. Great. Thanks for sharing that. If you have a one thing that you'd like to share, please feel free to put it in the comments either now or if you're watching this on inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, please put it in the comments so others will benefit from what you have to share. And if you are not yet a member of the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, please join us. We have conversations like this and many things, other things that are happening to help you take that next step forward. It's easy to join. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and then ask to join. It is a private group because we're trying to grow a community that provides space for people to have conversations like this, to try to figure out those things that are happening and get a different perspective on what is currently real for them. So just ask to join. Tell us why you're a renegade and you can be a part of this growing community. With that, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I hope you're able to join us at 8:30 for our networking event. Actually, as soon as we get off here. And if not, we'll see you inside the Ring group, or we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern Time for our next edition of Today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you soon.
Carving your own path is tough. You want and need a community to offer you insights and advice, share inspiration, provide support, and save you time and money. But where do you find all that? Here's the easy answer: the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners identify their next steps. Here's some of what you will find at the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. Just go to ringofrenegades.com and join today. Find an accomplished